It's 2023, and the Boston Bruins just put together the greatest regular season in NHL history. 65 wins, a record-breaking 135 points, breaking the record by 3 points, which was set by the Montreal Canadiens all the way back in 1977. The Bruins were firing on all cylinders, from the league's top goaltending tandem to a 60-goal campaign by David Pastrnak. They didn't just win games, they dominated them. And despite early doubts, a new head coach, key injuries to start the year, the Bruins came out blazing. They opened the season 23-0 and didn't look back once. They won at home, they won on the road, they won against playoff contenders and rebuilding teams alike. Every night, someone new stepped up. Their depth was unmatched, their chemistry was undeniable, and they were expected to win the Stanley Cup. But that's not exactly what happened. And now, just 2 years later, after the greatest season of all time, the Boston Bruins find themselves at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. So how does a team go from unstoppable to unrecognizable in just 24 months? To really understand just how staggering that Bruins 2022-2023 season was, we have to go and look beyond the numbers, though the numbers alone are historic. Boston finished the regular season with 65 wins, which is the most ever in a single NHL season. That beat out the 95-96 Wings and the 18-19 Tampa Bay Lightning, who both had 62. They also racked up 135 points, breaking the record set by the 76-77 Canadiens, a team that many still call the greatest of all time. And they did it with efficiency. They opened the season with a 23-0 record, including 14 straight wins at home to start the season, which is another NHL record. They barely ever hit a cold streak. Boston never lost more than 2 games in a row in regulation, and their longest stretch without a win, it was just 3 games, and that only happened once throughout the season. Offensively, they were relentless. David Pastrnak led the charge with 61 goals, which was a career high for him, and was only second in the league, only to Connor McDavid. 12 different Bruins scored at least 30 points that year, and the team's forward depth was loaded, and their defense was rock solid as well, with players like Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy anchoring the blue line. They gave up just 2.12 goals per game, which was the fewest in the entire league. Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman formed the NHL's best goaltending duo, and they won the Jennings for allowing the fewest goals in the league. Ullmark also won the Vezina Trophy as the league's top goalie, finishing with a .938 save percentage and a 1.89 goals against average. He even scored a goal, the first Bruins goalie to ever do it. Everything was pointing towards this team making a very good run for the Stanley Cup. Every stat, every trend, every piece of momentum was on their side. But that's the thing about dominance, it only matters if it lasts. And for the 2023 Bruins, it didn't. Because this historic season wasn't the beginning of a dynasty, it was the start of a collapse.
Here's Verhaeghe shooting, he scores! Carter Verhaeghe! The Panthers have done it! They've stunned the Boston Bruins!
After being up 3-1 against the second wildcard team, Florida Panthers, they went on to lose 3 straight, including a monumental choke in Game 7.
Long shot block, Montour scores! Brandon Montour with 59.3 seconds remaining.
And that absolute choke job also marked the end of the legendary careers of Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci. They both retired that offseason, and this meant the front office had a lot of work to do. With limited cap space, they were forced to make some tough decisions that reshaped the entire core of the 65-win team. Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno were traded to the Blackhawks in a cap-clearing move, while Tyler Bertuzzi, Dmitry Orlov, Garnet Hathaway, and Connor Clifton all left during free agency. So with losing about half of your top 9, Boston made a series of calculated signings to try and stay competitive. Milan Lucic returned to bring grit and veteran presence. Obviously not a skill guy, but he had a good run in Boston before, so they brought him back. JVR was added to the forward group, and they also signed Morgan Geekie to strengthen the bottom 6. Still, the roster turnover was significant. What had been one of the deepest, most consistent lineups in NHL history now faced serious question marks. But once the season began, the Bruins proved they weren't going anywhere. Even without Bergeron, even without Krejci, Boston still put together another strong campaign, finishing 47-20-15 and securing second place in the Atlantic Division. It wasn't the historic dominance of the year before, but it was still one of the league's best records. Pastrnak led the charge with 47 goals and 110 points, picking up right where he left off. Marchand embraced the new captaincy role, and the blue line, led by Charlie McAvoy, Hampus Lindholm, and Brandon Carlo, remained one of the NHL's best. Swayman took on a larger role in net, finishing with a .253 goals against average, while Linus Ullmark continued to deliver in his share of the starts. The Bruins may have lost some firepower up front, but their defensive structure and goaltending stayed elite. In the playoffs, they battled past Toronto in a 7-game series, with Pastrnak scoring the Game 7 overtime winner to send Boston through.
The game, Lindholm sends it in, and it's Pastrnak!
But once again, it was the Florida Panthers who ended their run, this time in 6 games. After the loss, GM Don Sweeney praised the group's toughness and ability to adapt, but he made it clear, this wasn't about surviving the post-Bergeron era, it is still about chasing Stanley Cups, and they made some moves that offseason to, again, try and stay competitive. They brought in Elias Lindholm to center the top line and added 6'6" Nikita Zadorov to bulk up the blue line. Sure, there were questions, Lindholm's numbers had dipped the last couple seasons, and Zadorov hadn't exactly been more than a third-pair guy, but in Boston's system, especially with Lindholm playing next to a guy like Pastrnak, there was hope that both of them could find their form again. And in goal, the Bruins made it clear who the future belonged to. Jeremy Swayman signed an 8-year, $66 million deal after some contract drama that probably went on a little bit too long, and that move came after the Bruins traded away Linus Ullmark to Ottawa, officially ending the league's best goaltending tandem. It was Swayman's cage now, no safety net, no rotation, and the team was betting big on him being able to handle that. Up front, Boston also lost Jake DeBrusk to Vancouver in free agency, another blow to their scoring depth. Combine that with an already shaky center depth, and it raised some fair concerns. Still, with a core built around Pastrnak, McAvoy, and now Swayman, the Bruins weren't headed for a collapse. Not yet, at least. They might not dominate like they once did, but they weren't done competing either. At least that's what everyone thought. But just 20 games into this season, that confidence started to crack. The Bruins stumbled out of the gate with an 8-9-3 record, and it didn't take long for the pressure to reach a breaking point. On November 19th, the Bruins made the decision to fire head coach Jim Montgomery, a move that raised eyebrows for sure, given he had led the team to a record-setting 65-win season just 2 years earlier. Still, after back-to-back early playoff exits and a sluggish start, the front office felt a change was necessary. Joe Sacco came in as the interim head coach, and the Bruins were hoping for a spark, but it never really came. The team just kept slipping and slipping and slipping, slowly but steadily falling down the standings and out of the playoff picture. That's when it became clear that just tweaking around the edges wasn't going to cut it anymore. For years, the Bruins had tried to stay competitive by holding onto their core and patching holes, but the writing was on the wall. This time, they decided to do something completely different. On March 7th, they traded away Brad Marchand to the Florida Panthers. The move shocked a lot of people, and understandably so. 16 seasons, a Stanley Cup, the heart of the locker room, and the one guy who stuck around when others left, who took the captaincy after Bergeron and wore it with pride. He was more than just a player, he was the Bruins. Trading Marchand marked the end of an era, and the beginning of something new. For the first time in a very long time, the Bruins weren't trying to stay in the middle of things. They were finally committing to a real retool. Since Marchand's departure, the Bruins haven't just struggled, they've completely fallen apart. They are the worst team in the Eastern Conference and rank 4th last in the entire league. As of now, they're closing in on one of the worst losing streaks in franchise history. A team that was chasing greatness just 2 seasons ago is now chasing rock bottom in yet another record-breaking season, just not the kind anyone wants to remember. The scoring has dried up, the defense looks lost, and despite Jeremy Swayman's best efforts in net, the team in front of him just isn't holding up. It's not just the results, it's the body language, the confidence, and the identity. The rebuild, or retool, or whatever they're calling it, isn't just bumpy, it's brutal. And for the first time in a long time, the Bruins aren't feared, they're pitied. This isn't a slump, it's a collapse. Honestly, it wasn't just one thing that made this all happen. It was a slow, steady unraveling, death by a thousand cuts, starting right at the top, the front office. They tried to keep the window open just a little bit longer than what they should have, and instead of taking real swings, they leaned into what they thought were safe moves. Signing Elias Lindholm to center the top line, bringing in Nikita Zadorov for size and grit, betting on depth pieces they hoped would bounce back. None of it was disastrous on its own, but it all added up and none of it moved the needle. Then came the big one, firing Jim Montgomery just 20 games into the season. The same head coach who led them to a 65-win season, gone. And what happened next? He went to St. Louis and turned the Blues into one of the hottest teams in hockey. Meanwhile, the Bruins are sinking fast. And the Swayman contract negotiations didn't help either. It dragged into the season, and while they finally gave him a long-term deal, it came after trading Linus Ullmark, breaking up the best goaltending tandem in the league. And Swayman's been good, but he can't carry this thing alone. Then came the emotional gut punch, trading away Brad Marchand. 16 years of blood, sweat, and leadership gone. And with it, any illusion that this team was still contending. That move made it official. They weren't trying to patch things up anymore, they were tearing it all down. All the signs were there, the early playoff exits, the cracks in the core, the Bruins just didn't want to believe it. And now, 2 years after rewriting the record books, they're not just losing games, they've lost their entire identity.